most of the people watching this video probably use Google Chrome. And I say that because most people use Google Chrome. Well, Google is now giving you a pretty good reason to think about whether you should be switching to alternative. It's currently trialing a creepy new tracking technology. And the worst of it is, if you are in that trial, you don't even know about it.
Have you heard of FLoC? FLoC is Google's new way of tracking people. People are aware of the third-party cookies that follow them across the web in Chrome. The difference with FLoC, Google says, is it's actually privacy first. The reason is it groups people into groups. So you're not tracked as an individual anymore. You're tracked as what it calls a cohort.
Now, the interesting thing is cookies have some use as well. It means when you go to a site you've been on before, it can log you back in, it recognises you. It's also used for tracking you and targeting you with ads. FLoC has no good reason whatsoever. It is purely there to target you with ads, which is one thing. There is no excuse for that.
These last couple of weeks, we've been talking about iOS 14.5, we've been talking about Apple, we've been talking about Facebook and all the tracking that's going on there. Meanwhile, we have had Google introduce FLoC. There was a little blog that went out, there was a little news piece, but this really seems like it's slipped under the radar a bit, that Google's almost hidden behind kind of the big bursts that were going around about Apple.
It's a complex issue. FLoC's been on the drawing board for a couple of years now, and it's part of Google talking about becoming privacy first and putting data into a sandbox. So to protect you as the user, what they say they're trying to protect against is what's called fingerprinting, which is when Kate visits the website, we know who you are, we know where you live, you know how old you are, what you do for a living. Everyone hates the thought of that. The intent, so it's said, is to try and protect against that. The challenge, though, is twofold. Firstly, it concentrates an awful lot of power in Google's hands because the way these cohorts are created is by the browser. There's no central cloud service here. Your browser, in essence, is spying on you and is working out all of the things you do, all the sites you visit, the things you do online, and is then working out how to group you with other like-minded users. When you then go to a website, the identity of that FLoC that cohort is presented to that website. So we know you are, a working woman living in the UK of a certain age bracket, certain demographic, and those organisations can then more successfully advertise to you.
In Europe, it's actually going to be more difficult. Is that right? Because of the privacy regulation that we've got here, because of GDPR, it doesn't allow for this sort of tracking, especially when we haven't opted into this sort of tracking.
What you've got now is what they call an origin trial. So there is a small by Chrome standards means millions and millions of users. There's a small trial of users who are having this switched on their browsers without realizing. There is currently no toggle to switch it off because it's a trial. The only way you could switch it off is to disable cookies in their entirety, which gives you another problem because if you are in this trial, which you wouldn't know about, then you have both cookies and FLoC enabled at the same time, which gives people even more information around you. You're absolutely right, Kate. The trial is the US and a number of other countries. It doesn't touch Europe where GDPR is in effect. Clearly, Google is looking to find a way to work around or to comply with the privacy regulations that GDPR brings forth in order to go live.
Yeah, this trial's going on, and most people seem to think there's no way of knowing if they're part of that trial, and that's actually wrong. I've discovered that the Electronic Frontier Foundation, who I'm a great fan of, have set up a wonderful site called Am I FLoCed, which will check to see if you're part of this, as a Chrome user, if you're part of this trial or not. All you need to do is go to amifloced.org, that's amifloced.org, and it will check if there's a FLoC ID in your browser. As Zach says, this doesn't mean that you can easily disable it, but at least you'll know you're part of the trial. One more thing that I'll just throw in as well. Talking of the EFF, there's something that they've said which I think is hugely important, and I'm going to actually pick up a piece of paper and read this. FLoC might not share your detailed browsing history, but we reject the notion of because it's in your device, it's private. If data is used to infer something about you, about who you are and how you can be targeted, and then shared with other sites and advertisers, it's not private at all.
I do not get inundated with emails from people who use Brave or DuckDuckGo who can't shop successfully on the internet. They want to buy a pair of shoes. They can't for the life of them find a way to buy a pair of shoes. They go on, they put into the search engine, buy shoes, and a load of houses, cars and golf clubs turn up. Doesn't happen. We can all use the internet without being tracked.